On Christmas Day, when the table was set with festive lights, my daughter poured a glass of wine over me in front of the children, relatives, and all the guests. Her rage erupted amid toasts to the family, shattering the illusion of a happy holiday. But the shock that flashed across her face when I permanently removed her from my will was only the beginning. I had no intention of stopping. It was already too late. The wine glass trembled in my hand as I stood at the head of the dinner table, ready to make my toast. Christmas Eve 2023. The golden brown turkey gleamed under the chandelier light alongside the collard greens and sweet potato casserole. Candles flickered warmly, and my best burgundy blouse felt crisp against my skin. Perfect, just like Angela would have wanted. To family, I began, raising my glass toward my daughter Jasmine, her husband Marcus, and their children, to remembering those we've lost and cherishing. Jasmine's bitter laugh cut through my words like breaking glass. Stop this hypocrisy. Her voice cracked with 5 years of accumulated rage. You deserve this. The red wine arced through the air in slow motion, catching the Christmas lights as it flew. Burgundy liquid splashed across my face, soaking into my collar, dripping down my chin, onto the pristine tablecloth. The silence that followed was deafening. Zoe started crying. 8-year-old Isaiah ducked behind his father's chair. The Washingtons, our neighbors, froze with forks halfway to their mouths. Aunt Clara dropped her napkin. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. I stood motionless, wine still dripping, my accountant's mind cataloging details, the temperature of the liquid, the spray pattern across my blouse, the exact trajectory from Jasmine's position. 42 years old, and my daughter had just thrown wine in my face at Christmas dinner. Jasmine, stop, the children are watching, Marcus whispered, but his voice carried no authority. She wasn't finished. Rising from her chair, Jasmine's face twisted with a resentment that had been festering since Angela's funeral. 5 years, Mama. 5 years I've begged for help with credit cards and you buy them cheap plastic toys from the dollar store. The Washingtons began gathering their coats with awkward efficiency. We should probably, Denise Washington mumbled, not meeting anyone's eyes. Those aren't cheap toys, I said quietly, wiping wine from my chin. I chose each one carefully. Carefully cheap. Jasmine's voice rose higher. While you sit in this big house hoarding Mama's life insurance money, your grandchildren get garbage. Aunt Clara attempted damage control. Jasmine, honey, this isn't the time or place. When is the time, Aunt Clara? When she's dead and it's too late. Jasmine grabbed the gift I'd wrapped for Isaiah, a model airplane kit I'd spent hours selecting. Look at this, $20 junk while she's worth $500,000. Marcus tugged at her arm. Please, let's go home and talk about this properly. But I was studying my daughter's face, seeing clearly for the first time in years. I saw the calculation behind her anger. The way she'd arrived empty-handed but expected gifts. How she'd criticized everything: the wine I'd chosen, the china I'd set, the meal I'd prepared alone. Zoe sobbed louder. Mommy, stop yelling at Grandma. Your grandmother doesn't care about us. Jasmine snapped, tearing open Isaiah's present. See this plane? This is what 48 years of being her daughter gets you. Scraps. The model plane scattered across the floor in pieces. Isaiah whimpered. I bent to collect the broken parts, my movements deliberate and calm. When I straightened, every eye in the room was watching me. The wine stains spread across my chest like a map of betrayal. Thank you, Jasmine, I said, my voice steady as bedrock. Thank you for showing your true face. She faltered for a moment, perhaps recognizing something new in my tone, but her momentum carried her forward. My true face. What about yours, Mama? The grieving widow act while you count every penny. She swept Zoe's gift off the table. These children deserve better than your stinginess. The Washingtons had reached the front door. I heard their car starting in the driveway. Marcus made one last attempt. Jasmine, we should leave now. The kids are upset. But Jasmine was building to her crescendo, listing every financial request I'd denied over the years. The credit card debt. Mama, $18,000 we asked you to help with last spring. She paced behind the scattered gifts, wine glass still clutched in her trembling hand. And what did you say? Learn to budget better. I remained standing by my chair, wine cooling against my skin, processing each accusation with mechanical precision. Behind me, Aunt Clara quietly ushered Zoe and Isaiah toward the living room, but their frightened whispers still carried. The roof repairs 2 years ago, $12,000. We practically begged. Jasmine's voice cracked with genuine emotion now, or a convincing performance of it. You said the bank would give us better terms than family could. Marcus stood helplessly between his wife and the door, car keys jingling in his nervous hands. We really should go. This isn't solving anything. Solving. Jasmine whirled on him. Nothing gets solved because she sits in her fortress counting Mama's money while her own family struggles. The accusation about Angela's life insurance hit differently than the others. I felt something shift inside my chest. Not pain, but clarity. Cold, analytical clarity. Your mother's life insurance, I repeated slowly, paid for Zoe's medical bills when she was born. You know this. Some of it. What about the rest? Jasmine gestured wildly at this house, the renovations, your precious sewing room in the basement. Meanwhile, Isaiah needs tutoring. We can't afford. Aunt Clara appeared in the doorway, coat already on, Isaiah's hand in hers. Evelyn, I'm taking the children home with me tonight, she announced firmly. This isn't appropriate for them to witness. Aunt Clara. Don't, Jasmine started. No. Clara's voice carried an authority that surprised everyone. You've embarrassed yourself and traumatized these babies enough. Zoe, sweetie, get your coat. As my aunt helped the children gather their things, I watched Jasmine's face cycle through a frustration and something that might have been shame, but not remorse. Never remorse. Fine. Jasmine slammed her wine glass on the mantel. Take them. Let Grandma explain why Christmas was ruined. Christmas was ruined, I said quietly, the moment you chose cruelty over gratitude. 5 years of careful patience, of hoping she'd mature, of excusing her behavior because she was grieving too. All of it crystallized into perfect understanding. Marcus, take your wife home. I met his eyes directly. And don't bring her back. Mama. Jasmine's voice pitched higher. You can't. Just I can. I am. I straightened to my full height, wine-stained but unmoved. You are no longer welcome in this house. You are no longer my daughter. The silence that followed felt different from before. Final. Jasmine stared at me, mouth opening and closing wordlessly. Marcus grabbed her arm, already moving toward the door. You'll regret this, she whispered, and then louder. You'll die alone in this house, counting your money, and no one will care. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Car doors banged shut. Tires squealed against the driveway pavement. I stood alone in my ruined dining room, surrounded by scattered gifts and broken dreams. Wine still dripping steadily onto Angela's good carpet. The grandfather clock chimed 9. The echo of Jasmine's departure hung in the air like smoke. I surveyed the wreckage, methodically overturned wine glasses, torn wrapping paper, the model airplane scattered in pieces by the hearth. The Christmas dinner sat cooling on the table, untouched plates beside demolished place settings. My accounting training kicked in automatically. Assess the damage, gather evidence, formulate a plan. I put on a pair of latex gloves from the kitchen. I began with the broken model plane, carefully picking up each plastic piece and placing it into a large zip-top bag. Each piece was evidence of her contempt for my grandchildren, a physical manifestation of her rage. Next, I took a ruler from my study and placed it beside the largest wine stains on the carpet and tablecloth for scale. From my pocket, I retrieved my phone and began photographing everything: the wine stain across my blouse, the broken gifts, the disrupted table setting, each image time-stamped and precise. I narrated as I worked, recording voice memos with clinical detachment. December 24th, 9:15 p.m. Subject threw approximately 4 ounces of red wine across a distance of 8 feet, demonstrating clear intent and premeditation. My voice sounded strange in the empty house. Destruction of gifts intended for minors, public humiliation in presence of neighbors and extended family. I walked through each room with deliberate steps, documenting the destruction. In the living room, cushions lay askew where Isaiah had hidden. The kitchen counter bore wine splashes that had somehow traveled 15 feet. Even the hallway walls showed burgundy spots. Each one was photographed. Each one was a data point in a growing case file. This was no longer a family dispute. It was a failure analysis. In my study, I opened the wall safe behind Angela's portrait. Inside lay insurance documents, the will I'd drafted 3 years ago, investment statements, property deeds, everything Jasmine assumed she knew about but had never actually seen. The will had been simple then, straightforward, naive. I spread the documents across my mahogany desk, turning on the banker's lamp that had belonged to my mother. Numbers told stories if you knew how to read them. Asset values, account balances, insurance beneficiaries, lifetime of careful planning, conservative investments, and methodical savings. Angela's life insurance had indeed been substantial, but Jasmine's accusations about hoarding were categorically false. I pulled up my banking app, scrolling through 5 years of transactions, Zoe's medical bills paid in full, Isaiah's daycare costs covered for 2 years, the roof repair Jasmine mentioned I had transferred $12,000 to their account in March 22. Each transaction was a quiet testament to my support. Support she had conveniently forgotten. My phone buzzed. A text message from Jasmine. Mama, I'm sorry about tonight, but you really hurt us by saying I'm not your daughter anymore. Can we talk tomorrow? No apology for the wine, no acknowledgement of the children's trauma, no mention of the destroyed gifts or humiliated neighbors. Just manipulation disguised as reconciliation. I scripted the message and added it to a new folder on my computer labeled evidence. Another text arrived. Marcus says I should have handled it differently. But you know I'm under a lot of stress with money problems. Please don't stay mad. Still no genuine remorse. The pattern was clear now, documented and undeniable. I dialed my lawyer's office, knowing I'd reach voicemail after business hours on Christmas Eve. Lawrence, this is Evelyn Harris. I need an urgent appointment as soon as possible after Christmas. The matter involves revising my will and cannot wait until the new year. Please call me back tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. The house felt different now. Not empty, liberated. I removed my wine-stained blouse, carefully placing it in an evidence bag, and walked upstairs to change. In the mirror, I looked older somehow. Not defeated, but clarified, focused. The phone rang at 10:30. Evelyn, it's Lawrence Mitchell. I got your message. Are you all right? You sound different. I'm fine, Lawrence. Better than fine, actually. How soon can we meet? Well, tomorrow's Christmas. But I could see you Thursday morning, if it's truly urgent. It is. I glanced at the evidence spread across my desk. We need to discuss inheritance protection strategies. My daughter has shown her hand and I intend to respond accordingly. I see. Lawrence's tone grew professional. Bring any relevant documentation. We'll review your options comprehensively. Christmas morning arrived, gray and quiet. I drove to downtown Richmond through empty streets, my folder of printed photographs and legal documents resting on the passenger seat. The sweet Magnolia Cafe glowed warm against the winter landscape, one of the few establishments open on the holiday. Raymond was already waiting in our usual corner booth when I arrived, coffee steaming before him. 70 years of friendship had taught us to read each other's faces, and his expression shifted immediately when he saw mine. Evelyn, you look like you haven't slept. He stood to embrace me, then gestured for me to sit. What's wrong? Just coffee for now. Lisa, I told our regular waitress. Once she'd retreated, I opened my folder methodically. Christmas Eve didn't go as planned. I slid my phone toward him. The first photograph showed my wine-stained blouse in stark detail. Raymond's weathered face transformed as he scrolled through the images, the broken gifts, the chaotic dining room. Sweet mother of. He looked up sharply. Jasmine did this, in front of the children, in front of neighbors. She threw wine directly in my face during my Christmas toast. My voice remained steady, but Raymond knew me well enough to hear the fury beneath. 48 years of raising her, Raymond, and I've never been this coldly determined. Raymond set the phone down carefully. Tell me everything. I recounted the evening systematically, the build-up, the explosion, the accusations, the aftermath. Raymond listened without interruption, his jaw tightening with each detail. When I finished, he leaned back against the booth's worn leather. What's your next move? From my purse, I produced a green marker and withdrew my current will. Raymond watched in fascination as I methodically crossed out every mention of Jasmine Harris Williams in the beneficiary sections. I meet with my lawyer Thursday morning, I explained, continuing to mark through her name. Complete DISINHERITANCE. What about Zoe and Isaiah? Their innocence in this missile. Establish a separate trust fund for them, accessible at 25 with behavioral conditions attached. I capped the marker with a sharp click, but only if they demonstrate genuine respect for family. Raymond nodded slowly, his eyes hard. You'll need an executor you can trust completely, someone who won't buckle under pressure from her. I was hoping you'd accept that responsibility. Raymond reached across the table, squeezing my shoulder with surprising strength. Of course I will. It's about time someone taught that girl consequences. The lawyer suggested a video testament explaining my reasoning. Would you witness it? Absolutely. Raymond studied the crossed-out will with grim satisfaction. You know, I always suspected she was troubled. Angela was too kind to see it. Angela believed in second chances, and third chances, and fourth. I gathered the documents back into their folder. I spent 5 years hoping Jasmine would mature. Christmas Eve proved that was naive optimism. The elevator climbed steadily toward Lawrence Mitchell's 20th floor office, carrying Raymond and me past the bustling commerce of downtown Atlanta. Lawrence's secretary greeted us with professional warmth. Mrs. Harris, Mr. Brooks, please go right in. Mr. Mitchell is reviewing your preliminary documents now. Lawrence stood behind his mahogany conference table, my folder of evidence spread before him like case exhibits. Evelyn, I've examined your photographs and timeline. He gestured toward chairs. This level of documentation is impressive for someone without legal training. Accounting habits, I replied, settling across from him. When something breaks, you analyze the failure systematically. Lawrence had arranged everything with courtroom precision evidence photos, text message printouts, a witness statement from Aunt Clara he'd already procured. Before we proceed, Lawrence continued, I need to stress that dramatic will changes often trigger legal challenges. Your daughter could claim undue influence, mental incompetence, or emotional coercion. That's why the documentation matters, I said. Every photograph is time-stamped. Every text message is preserved. The pattern of behavior is undeniable. Lawrence picked up a photo of the wine-stained blouse. These images clearly show deliberate assault. Combined with witness statements, they establish a solid foundation for what's called behavioral exclusion. Behavioral exclusion? Raymond asked. Georgia law permits disinheritance based on demonstrable mistreatment of the testator, Lawrence explained. Physical assault, public humiliation, and ongoing financial manipulation all qualify as sufficient grounds. What specific language do we need? I leaned forward. We'll draft a comprehensive exclusion clause, citing specific incidents with supporting documentation. The more detailed, the harder to challenge. Lawrence turned to Raymond. Are you prepared to defend this will against potential legal challenges? It could involve depositions, court appearances, and significant time commitment. Raymond straightened in his chair. Evelyn's been my closest friend for 48 years. If her daughter wants a fight, she'll get one. Lawrence nodded approvingly. Good now. I recommend creating a video testament explaining your reasoning in your own words. Courts find personal testimony particularly compelling when challenging claims of mental incompetence. How quickly can we finalize the changes? I asked. 2 weeks for complete documentation, including the video component. Lawrence examined my crossed-out will. I'll also recommend establishing that separate trust fund for your grandchildren with respect conditions. What kind of conditions? Written letters of understanding regarding family obligations, annual community service requirements, demonstrated financial responsibility. Lawrence's pen moved steadily. Essentially, they'll earn their inheritance through character development. As we prepared to leave, Lawrence's expression grew more serious. One final point, avoid any direct confrontation with your daughter. If she approaches you, document everything, but don't engage emotionally. Actually, I said, I hope she does approach me. It would provide additional evidence of her manipulative patterns. My phone rang as Raymond and I reached the parking garage. Jasmine's number. I showed Raymond the display, then answered with deliberate calm. Hello, Jasmine. Mama, I'm so glad you answered. Her voice was falsely bright. Marcus and I have been talking, and we really think we should meet in person to work things out properly. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. That might be possible, I replied, catching Raymond's knowing look. When were you thinking? Could we come by tomorrow evening? Maybe around 6. I want to explain everything properly without all the holiday stress. 6 o'clock tomorrow works fine, I said. I ended the call and turned to Raymond with calculated satisfaction. She's coming directly into the trap. The recording device is already prepared. The weight of strategic advantage settled around me like armor. By tomorrow night, I'd have everything I needed to make her disinheritance absolutely unassailable. The morning after New Year's Day found me in my study, replaying Jasmine's recorded apology for the 3rd time. Her emphasis on financial security for the grandchildren had been too deliberate, too calculated. Something nagged at my accountant's Minda pattern I couldn't quite identify. I pulled up my online banking, methodically reviewing recent transactions, and then I saw it. Buried in December's statements were login notifications from devices I didn't recognize. at times when I'd been sleeping. Raymond, it's Evelyn. I dialed my friend's number while staring at the suspicious activity. Can you meet me at Commonwealth Trust this morning? I need to check something, and I'd prefer a witness. An hour later. We sat across from Gerald Foster, the branch manager who'd handled my accounts for 15 years. His usually cheerful demeanor grew serious as he pulled up my financial records. Evelyn, I need to show you something that's been concerning me. Gerald turned his monitor toward us. This credit line was established with your personal guarantee 2 years ago. I stared at the document displayed on his screen. $25,000 secured against my home equity, with monthly payments automatically deducting from my checking account. My signature appeared at the bottom. Except it wasn't my signature. I never signed this document. Gerald pulled out a magnifying glass, comparing the signature to my actual one on file. You're absolutely right. Look at the E in Evelyn. Your real signature has a distinctive loop here. This one doesn't. Raymond whistled softly. She forged your name for $25,000. The next 3 hours revealed the systematic scope of my daughter's deception. Joint savings accounts I'd forgotten about, opened when she was 18. Credit cards where I'd been listed as a guarantor without my knowledge. Investment accounts where she'd been gradually transferring small amounts, always below the threshold that would trigger automatic notifications. The total exposure is approximately $47,000, Gerald announced, all linked to forged documents or unauthorized account access. I sat back, processing the numbers with cold calculation. $47,000 stolen through systematic fraud over nearly 3 years. No wonder she'd been so desperate to secure her inheritance. She'd been living off my credit for years. Remove her from every account immediately, I instructed. And Gerald, I want copies of every forged document, every unauthorized transaction, every suspicious login, everything. We left the bank with a thick manila folder containing hard-proof, damning, undeniable printouts of her fraud. This folder was the weapon that would win the war. That night, a noise downstairs woke me. It wasn't loud, a soft thud, like a book falling off a shelf. I stayed perfectly still, listening. The house was silent again, but the feeling of intrusion was palpable. I grabbed the heavy flashlight from my nightstand and moved silently down the hallway. The downstairs was dark, but a faint breeze told me the window in my study was open. My heart hammered against my ribs, not with fear, but with sudden, cold dread. I flicked on the light. The room looked undisturbed at first glance. My computer was there. The desk was neat. Angela's portrait was straight on the wall. Nothing seemed out of place. But the manila folder from the bank was gone. I scanned the desk, the floor, the bookshelf. Nothing. The thief had been professional. They hadn't ransacked the place. They had come for one specific item, the physical evidence, the forged loan application, the printouts of the fraudulent transfers. My single most powerful piece of leverage had vanished. I immediately called Raymond. They broke in. I said, my voice low and tight, the folder from the bank is gone. What? Are you okay? Did you call the police? No, not yet. This wasn't a random burglary. Raymond, they knew exactly what to look for. They left everything else, my laptop, the cash in the desk drawer. They only took the papers. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Jasmine, he finally said, his voice grim. Or Marcus. They must have been watching you. They saw us leave the bank. They're more desperate than I thought, I replied, staring at the empty space on my desk. Losing that folder is a major setback. It was our hard proof. The copies are at the bank, but the originals I had in my possession were powerful evidence. Now they're gone. I had been out. I had to act faster, more aggressively, before they could find a way to destroy the bank's records too. The next day, I was reviewing my security options when my phone rang. A blocked number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hello. Is this Evelyn Harris? The voice was male, strained, whispering. Who is this? There was a shaky breath on the other end. You don't know me. Listen, I don't have much time. It was Marcus, Jasmine's husband. His voice was trembling, almost unrecognizable with fear. Marcus, what do you want? You're looking at the wrong things, he stammered, his words tumbling out in a rush. The papers are gone, but that was never the real problem. It's bigger than that. She's in over her head. What are you talking about? I demanded, my grip tightening on the phone. Did you break into my house? No, I mean listen to me. I can't talk. Just check the guest room. Check the iPad. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my mind racing. The guest room. The iPad. It was an old device I'd bought years ago and barely used. Jasmine always stayed in that room when she visited. Was this a trap? Was Marcus trying to set me up? Or was he a terrified accomplice trying to save himself by betraying his wife? His motives were a mystery, but the tip was specific. It was a direct lead, and it was the only one I had. I need someone to examine my home network immediately. I told Kevin Chen, the IT security specialist Lawrence had recommended, unauthorized access to my financial accounts, suspicious login activity, and possibly more. Kevin arrived the next morning. A methodical professional in his 30s, with a briefcase full of diagnostic equipment. Within an hour, his laptop displayed a network map showing every device connected to my home. WI-B. Mrs. Harris, someone has been systematically accessing your network from multiple devices over the past 2 years. Kevin pointed to his screen. They've logged into your banking apps, email accounts, even your medical records portal. From where? This is interesting. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Most of the access is coming from a device physically located in your house. My blood chilled. Show me. Kevin led me straight to the guest room, to the old iPad sitting on the desk. He powered it on, revealing a screen filled with my personal applications, banking, email, insurance, investment accounts, all logged in, all accessible, all monitored. That someone configured this device to mirror your accounts and maintain constant access, Kevin said, scrolling through the activity logs. They've been watching your financial activity, reading your emails, even monitoring your medical appointments. He opened the messaging app. A conversation thread between Jasmine and Marcus made my chest tighten with fury so cold it felt like ice. Marcus, still waiting for the old woman to kick the bucket. How much longer? Jasmine, she's 68 with heart problems. Can't be much longer. Marcus, I've been monitoring her accounts, still spending money like she lived forever. Jasmine, at least we know exactly what we'll inherit when the time comes. Marcus, if she doesn't change her will first. Jasmine, that's why you need to stay in her good graces. Kevin watched my face as I read their casual discussion of my mortality. There are dozens more messages like this, spanning 2 years, he said quietly. Should I document everything? Yes, my voice sounded strangely calm, even to my own ears. Screenshot every message, every login, every unauthorized access. I want a complete digital forensics report. She knows about your will changes, Kevin noted later. Reviewing recent activity, your appointment confirmations with Lawrence Mitchell were all accessed from this device. Of course, she had been watching my every move. She had seen the bank meetings in my calendar. She knew about the lawyer. That's why they had broken in. They weren't just covering their tracks. They were preparing for a legal war. And she thought she was one step ahead. That evening, I sat in my study and set up my laptop camera. If Jasmine was watching my digital activity, she was about to get a front row seat to her own destruction. I hit record and spoke directly to the lens. My name is Evelyn Harris. If someone is watching this video, it means my daughter Jasmine Harris Williams has challenged my will posthumously. I began, my voice clear and steady. I want to be perfectly clear. Every decision I have made has been deliberate, documented, and legally sound. I methodically presented each piece of evidence. I held up the photos of the wind-throwing assault. I detailed the $47,000 financial fraud, explaining the bank's official findings. And then I held up the printouts of Kevin's report. For the past 2 years, my daughter has maintained systematic and illegal surveillance of my private life, I said, reading from their messages. Still waiting for the old woman to kick the bucket. She's 68 with heart problems. Can't be much longer. These are not the words of a grieving daughter. These are the words of a predator waiting for her inheritance. Jasmine has shown her true character repeatedly, I concluded, looking directly into the lens. Through assault, through theft, and through callous disregard for my life, I have responded accordingly. After uploading the video to secure cloud storage and sending copies to Lawrence and Raymond, I called Kevin back. I want my digital life completely protected from further surveillance. A February afternoon, sunlight streamed through my study window. Car doors slammed outside with unusual violence. Through the window, I watched Jasmine emerge from her SUV, her face twisted with desperate fury. She yanked a handmade poster board sign from her trunk. The sign read, "My mother betrayed her family." My phone was already in my hand, recording as she positioned herself on the sidewalk. People, Look, she shouted toward neighboring houses. This woman cut off her own grandchildren from their inheritance. Evelyn Harris is a heartless mother. Curtains moved in windows. Front doors opened cautiously. Denise Washington appeared on her porch, phone already recording. I remained inside, methodically filming while dialing the police. This is Evelyn Harris at 128 Magnolia Drive. My daughter is violating her restraining order. Jasmine Harris Williams. Denise called from her porch. We read about you in the newspaper. The financial fraud charges. Lies. Jasmine whirled toward her. She's manipulating the media. I made one mistake at Christmas, and now she's destroyed our whole family. 2 Richmond police cruisers arrived with lights flashing but no sirens. An officer approached Jasmine with professional calm, while I met another at my front door with a copy of the restraining order. Ma'am, you need to step away from this property immediately. The officer called to Jasmine. This is my mother, she screamed, brandishing her sign like a weapon. I have a right to see my own mother. Actually, you don't. The officer approached her steadily. You're in violation of a legal restraining order. Put the sign down and place your hands behind your back. This is insane. Mama, stop this madness. I'm your daughter. I stepped onto my front porch, maintaining the required distance, and met her eyes. My daughter died the night she threw wine in my face. You're just someone who happens to share my DNA. The handcuffs clicked shut around Jasmine's wrists. The courthouse corridors buzzed with activity. Evelyn, in 30 years of family law, I've never seen a case this thoroughly documented, Lawrence observed, spreading key exhibits across his conference table. The hearings for the restraining order, violation, and the civil challenge to my will were combined. Inside the courtroom, Jasmine sat beside her court-appointed attorney, looking diminished and desperate. She avoided my gaze. Your Honor, Lawrence began, we have systematic evidence of elder abuse spanning multiple years, escalating from emotional manipulation to financial fraud to invasion of privacy. He started with the forgery. Enlarged photographs of the fake signatures appeared on the courtroom screen, alongside my authentic ones. The handwriting analysis is quite clear. Judge Patricia Monroe, a stern woman in her 60s, stated, these signatures don't match. The digital evidence was even more damning. Kevin Chen testified via video link, explaining how Jasmine had maintained surveillance of my private accounts. Her messages about my death flashed on the screen, creating a visible wave of discomfort through the room. Jasmine's casual cruelty was preserved in damning detail. Raymond testified about our 48-year friendship. Evelyn became a different woman after that Christmas Eve, he explained, his voice thick with emotion, not bitter, but determined, focused on protecting herself and helping others, facing similar manipulation. The final piece of evidence was my video will explanation. The courtroom was silent as my recorded voice calmly and methodically laid out the entire history of abuse. Judge Monroe watched intently, her expression unreadable. The verdicts came swiftly. Criminal conviction for the restraining order violation. Complete validation of my new will with all challenges dismissed, and legal fees awarded to my side, further devastating Jasmine's financial position. Justice had prevailed. Christmas Eve morning, 2024, exactly 1 year since Jasmine threw wine in my face. I stood in the same kitchen preparing Christmas dinner with genuine joy. The guest list had changed dramatically. Raymond and his girlfriend Ruth, Kevin Chen with his wife and son Kevin Jr., Aunt Clara, the Washingtons, and Detective Sharon Cole, who'd become a friend during the investigation. I set the dining room table with care, placing a manila envelope at each person's place setting. Inside each, a copy of my final will, explaining in simple terms how their respect and loyalty had earned them shares in my estate. Miss Evelyn, 6-year-old Kevin Jr. burst through the front door, his energy filling the house with the sound I'd missed most children's laughter, without fear or tension. At 7, we gathered around the same table. Before we eat, I announced, standing at the head, I want to explain these envelopes. Last Christmas, I learned that DNA doesn't create family. Love, respect, and mutual support, that's what makes people family. Laughter rippled around the table as they discovered their bequests. Raymond inheriting the house, Kevin receiving educational funds for Kevin Jr., the Washingtons getting Angela's garden. Two real family, I said, raising my glass in the same spot where my journey had begun. The people who choose to love us for who we are, not what we can provide. 8 glasses rose in a unanimous toast. Kevin Jr. clinked his apple juice against my wine with ceremonial seriousness. The grandfather clock chimed 9, marking not an ending but a new beginning. Real family had found me at last. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say, you were here.